Greetings. Welcome to the To Be the Very Best Gamer podcast, the podcast that keeps gamers entertained and informed on the world of video games. I'm your host, JD Gamer. So today's episode is actually part two of our The Worst of Video Game Industry in 2025. Last episode, we discussed everything except for Microsoft. And this episode, we will be discussing Microsoft. So let's go ahead and bite the bullet and discuss. Oh man, there's so much to discuss about Microsoft and how they basically almost ruined gaming themselves in 2025.
Honestly, of all the bad things that happened in gaming in 2025, I think Xbox is behind probably the worst. Um, where do we even start? Like, where do we also start with like how bad 2025 was for Xbox? You know what? Let's start with the console increases, specifically the first one, right? 2025, new sheriff in town, tariffs, changing marketing conditions, whatever, right? Just the threat, just the threat of the presidential change led to Microsoft and Xbox doing the first cost increase in May of 2025. Remember, at this time, no one else was doing increases. So this is just Microsoft. Microsoft increased the prices of all of their consoles, right? So the Series S, the 512 gigabyte one, went from $300 to $380. The Series S 1 terabyte, $350 to $430. The Series X digital, $450 to $550. The Series X original, $500 to $600. And the Series X 2 terabyte, $600 to $730. That's a $130 increase. That's not even consistent with the other increases. That's crazy, right? And it's Microsoft. Why? Why would you increase the cost of your console? First off, they are a $3 to $4 trillion company. Emphasize the $1 trillion. And they can't take a little hit to the consoles. You are last place in the console race. Of course, your direct competitor, Sony, is running laps around you, right? Right now, the PlayStation 5 has sold at least 80 million units, if I'm correct, while the Xbox Series systems, I think, just made it over 30, maybe 35 million, right? And that's not to even talk about the Switch's 140 plus million units sold, basically almost five times what the Xbox has sold. And you think increasing your pricing is going to help? You're talking about how everything's an Xbox and how you're still dedicated to doing hardware, and yet you increase your hardware prices to make it harder for people to get your console, right? And remember, that was the first console. That was the first price increase. Remember, this is before the tariffs actually mattered. Then we get to October. This is where, okay, tariffs are in action. And this is also around the same time that Nintendo raised the price of the Switch 1 and Sony eventually raised the price of the PS5, right? Now you would think, okay, Microsoft, they already raised their prices for their consoles between $80 and $130, right? They've already raised their prices preemptively. So things will be fine, right? No. They increased the console prices again. The Series S 512 going to $400 now. The Series S going to $450 now. The Series X Digital to $600. The Series X to $650. And the Series X 2 terabyte becoming the most expensive console at $800 flipping dollars. Microsoft, why do you keep shooting yourself in the foot? Who is going to pay $800 for the Series X 2 terabyte when the PS5 Pro is $750? The Pro, not the base one, the Pro, right? Who's going to do that? Please explain to me who is going to do that, especially when you barely have any exclusives. But we'll get to that. We will get to the lack of exclusives in a moment. On top of the increases to the console prices, they also increased the price of their dev kits. The dev kits for the Xbox Series systems was $1,500, right? But now they've increased it to $2,000. What was the point of that? Don't you want people to come to your system? Don't you want game developers to make games for your system? Apparently not, because you just made it $500 harder for them to afford the dev kit, especially if they're any developer, right? Did you not pay attention to which game was it? I forgot the game, but there's a studio that was making a game, and the game, they're in the studio, didn't have much funds, and they were running low on funds, and they had to legit make a decision about where to put their game at, right? Because they're going to put the effort in, buy the dev kit for it. They needed to make sure they were going to get the reach that they needed. And ultimately, they went with the PlayStation, even though there's Xbox Game Pass, and that was definitely getting the reach. But the dev kit was easy to show for one, over the Xbox, but two, Sony almost has a 3 times player base to the Xbox. And it's like, why are you making it harder for people who want to play games on your system? Do you not like money? Do you not want to belong in the console space? You already are the number one publisher of games in all of the industry, and you're still trying to stay in the console game, and yet, like, make a decision. Do you want to stay in the console game, or do you just want to be a publisher? At this point, you can't be both. The decision you're making right now, you're basically telling people, don't buy an Xbox console, and yet they keep doing the console stuff. It's not them making the consoles; they're partnering with people to make it for them. Introducing the ROG Xbox Ally and ROG Xbox Ally X, these extremely expensive handheld consoles, right? And it's like, why? What was the point of these? To give people a Xbox experience handheld, but it's not even the right format for that. These aren't handheld gaming consoles. These are handheld PCs that just so happen to have Xbox interfaces on them. But they're handheld PCs, right? It means that they're not initially designed for gaming, which means that they're going to be more expensive to a dedicated handheld, right? You would think it's the handheld, right? It's not going to be as powerful as the base system. It's going to have lower resolution, lower storage capacity, all these things that should make the console cheaper. Why is the ROG Ally and the ROG Ally X, the ROG Xbox versions of these things, why are they more expensive than your home console? Who is really going to be buying these things? You're so focused on making everything in the Xbox and stuff like that, we could spend time just making a dedicated handheld. A handheld that strictly plays Xbox games and the Xbox ecosystem, they could sell for maybe $400 or $500. I guess in today's money, $400, $500 kind of works. Take Nintendo's playbook, right? The Switch 2 is impressive, but it's not beating PS5 specs. But it's still an affordable handheld that gives people access to their entire Switch library. And this isn't the trash on ROG, because ROG makes great products. They're expensive, but they're good. But this was not the move for Xbox at all. Brings us to the funniest story with Black Friday. November had the Black Friday weekend sales. And while November was down on all gaming sales, it's kind of crazy. Sony won. PlayStation took the majority of the market share for Black Friday. Then the Switch did. And then you would think, okay, third place, Xbox. No. A random Kinect-like console called the Next Playground actually took third place. This $150, $250 Kinect-like family console outsold the Xbox console for Black Friday. That is crazy. How do you get outsold by a console that no one had even heard of? Oh man, I want to just take a moment to stop and say that I'm not an Xbox hater, right? It sounds like I am, but there was a time when I was like a huge Xbox fan. My first ever gaming console that I owned was the PlayStation 2. But when it came between the 360 and the PS3, I hopped onto the 360. I dealt with the Red Rings. I played all my sports games on there. I played Halo on there, Forza on there. And when the Xbox One generation came, yeah, I saw the mess that they made, but I still picked the Xbox One over the PS4. It wasn't until recently with the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 that I got a PlayStation 5 and not a Series X. That's to say, I'm not an Xbox hater. And honestly, I just genuinely wish that they were doing better. So this isn't this is just me just trashing our Microsoft. But genuinely, 2025 was just crazy for them. Right? So let's move on, because I don't want to just keep bashing Microsoft this entire podcast session. But there are still some crucial things that made 2025 very terrible for them. But we'll take a break and talk about some minor things first. The lack of exclusives, right? As everything on Xbox, Microsoft trying to be the number one publisher, they're going to put all their exclusives on all the platforms. So basically, the 2025 only had 5 true exclusive games at the time, because we now know that some of those games are going to the PlayStation. So they were only exclusive for so long. And that was Avowed, Grounded 2, South of Midnight, Keeper, and Tower Bone. And my thing is this, right? Microsoft at this point just turned Xbox into a publisher, because every time, yeah, you're making money from a sale when the game goes on PlayStation or Nintendo, but you're also losing sales, right? But not you're losing sales, because if you make a game on your platform and people have to buy it from you directly, you get all the money. But if you place it on someone else's platform, you don't get all the money. You get whatever's left of the money after they take the cut. You own Call of Duty, the best selling year over year game ever. And yeah, to be fair, contractual obligations, stuff like that, whatever. But you have failed to take advantage of that. You could recover your losing position to Sony by having Call of Duty be strictly exclusive and non-Game Pass for a year. Look at the Game Pass a little bit. You're thinking, is that kind of anti-consumer? No, because you're in desperate need of exclusivity. You're desperate need to see that your platform is where you can play at, and that would have been the move to play. Instead, we have exclusive games that are timed exclusive. That's what it is. It's timed exclusivity on Xbox. So it's going to eventually be on PlayStation or potentially be on the Nintendo Switch too. So why not just wait it out? People have tens of hundreds of games in their backlog. Just play one of those, and then my game's available on my non-Xbox system, and go ahead and play that. Speaking of, you got 2 Xbox games that were exclusive put on the PlayStation 2025, and that's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Great game. That was exclusive on Xbox for 3 months and it went to Sony. And then Forza Horizon 5. And it's dang, Microsoft, you gave away one of your most exclusive franchises. Why did you have to put Forza? Why did you even do Forza Horizon 2 on PS5? They have their own sports franchise, Gran Turismo. You'll see Gran Turismo coming over to the Xbox. And so why are you sending Forza over there? Why can't you just keep things uniquely Xbox and uniquely Microsoft? That's frustrating. But I've talked a lot bad about Microsoft. Let's get to probably the biggest thing that they did that was bad 2025. The thing that might actually make it near impossible for them to ever recover the fans that they built. After the disaster that was the Xbox One launch, Phil Spencer took control of Xbox, and he and his team did a good job in working to recover the image that was taken of Xbox. That was with Game Pass. Game Pass was kind of like the Netflix of gaming. You pay a monthly subscription and get access to a ton of games, hundreds of games, first party games, third party games, indie games. They rotate it out on a regular basis too. But for paying subscription, you get access to all these games. And if you wanted to keep the games, you could buy them at a discount. It was an opportunity to not have to pay all this money to buy a game you probably like, or you won't pay much of, and really take the time to get access to and actually learn about new games you probably never would have touched before, right? At $9.99 when it first started, it was an amazing deal. To be fair, as time goes on, things do increase in price, right? This is around the time that Game Pass was separate from Xbox Live Gold, but eventually decided to piece them together. Point is, the Game Pass kept increasing and they split the tiers or something like that. And eventually, we were at a nice $15 a month. Then eventually, $20 a month. And that's where we were before. And while, yes, the prices haven't been increasing, so did the benefits, right? They added EA Play, they added Ubisoft Classic, they add all these other extra benefits to still make Game Pass worth it, even if the price increases, like day one releases, right? But then Microsoft over, right? After the Activision Blizzard purchase and the Bethesda purchase, Microsoft, free as they are, were like, yeah, we want our money back. And so they placed a 30% profit margin on Xbox. A 30% profit margin on a company that averaged 12% profit margins. Where did you think you'll get that money from? That's crazy. Basically, Microsoft is killing Xbox, right? Because Xbox went from this big a studio that they could just write off in their taxes to see that was actually for Xbox. Game Pass. In 2025, they restructured Game Pass. They made 4 tiers. Essential, which is like the basic tier, is still or revert back to $9.99, right? And probably get access to 50 plus games on Game Pass, but no day one releases. Then there's Premium, right? That one is $14.99, still $14.99, right? And with that one, you get new games, but released within a year launch, right? Which means that if a game was to come out today, they can hold out on releasing the game to you until the day before, like 364 days from now. It's, we're dropping this game now. You basically have to wait over the entire year, and it was within a year of its launch. So there you go. But then, and before we get to the last one, let's talk about that fourth one I was talking about, PC Game Pass. This one actually increased from $12 to $16.50. Why PC players have to pay for Game Pass anyway? We don't have to pay for internet or online access for Xbox. It's weird. But they hit this, by the way. This wasn't even out there. People hadn't discovered this. It's insane. But the biggest slap in the face was that Game Pass Ultimate, the tier that gives you the day one releases, went from $20 a month to $30 a month. What the mess is wrong with you? What? That's a 33% increase. Whatever increases 33%. Game Pass went from $9 to $12 to $14 to $15 to $17 to $20. The incremental increases. And you're like, nope, peel the band-aid off, 33%. There you go. And that's in the US. I've heard that it's like Brazil Game Pass Ultimate doubled. That's crazy. And for what? Day one access to games that barely from a company that barely releases games. What? And then on top of that, they removed a bunch of discounts you used to be able to get with Game Pass. You're now forced to pay monthly. So there's no annual offer, no discount offers either. Which means that if you want Game Pass Ultimate, you're paying $360 a year. You can buy a good 4 to 6 games with that same money. Games that you will actually play and enjoy. That's crazy. And that was the move that kind of sealed the fate of Xbox. That really made 2025 the worst year for Xbox when it came to gaming. And that contributed to some of the worst gaming in 2025.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode. Next episode, now that we've finished discussing the bad of video gaming in 2025, we can turn our attention to the good of video gaming from 2025. And with that, gamers, continue striving to be the very best.